Hello, so have you ever had a mesh that you made a long time ago, or more likely took from BlendSwap or something like that, like this cube bot here that I got from BlendSwap made by Graphite, and you want it to work in UE4, but it just quite isn't designed for that. So in this video I'd like to show you how I convert sort of basic armatures so that they're compatible in Unreal Engine. So here I'm just going to hide the body and get rid of all of the legs of the cube bot except for one. And then in the pose mode for the bones, I'm just going to get rid of all of their constraints, and then by selecting all of them I'm gonna use Ctrl G and Ctrl R to get rid of any changes in position or rotation from the like edit mode original, I guess. Now you also want to get rid of the constraints on the objects, the actual leg parts, but they're going to move around if you do that. So what you want to do first is apply the visual transform with Ctrl A, and then after that get rid of the object constraint. And then for this part up here, you can just get rid of it, it'll snap into place, and there's a duplicate here, and just delete. I'm also going to hide that because that's going to become part of the body later on. Now that these leg parts don't have any modifiers or constraints anymore, I'm going to select all of them and join them together. Now that they are one object, in edit mode I am just going to get some geometry here, so these rivets and some cylinders that I'm just going to delete them. It'll make making vertex groups later on easier, and lowering the vert count is always good. Now that that is done, I'm gonna start working with the bones, which is a long process. So firstly, I just renamed the bones, and I also made sure that every single bone ends with 0.001. Next, these are connector bones here. I'm just gonna make sure that they are not deformed so they don't create vertex groups later on. And then I'm also going to make sure that they are not connected to anything and that they are parented to the correct leg part. So these two connectors up here are going to be on the upper leg. This one is going to be on the lower leg. And then for the pistons as well, I want to make sure they are not connected. And then I'm going to select all the connectors and flip them by scaling them by -1, which is S-1 on the keyboard, then enter. I'm doing this to all the connectors so that the IKs work later, because IKs they point towards the beginning of the bone, and so, or the end of the bone, I'm not exactly sure. well, it makes sense. And here I'm duplicating the pistons and then connecting them to the opposite connector there. That's again just for the IK, so it works later. And then now I'm going to extend another bone here from the bottom of the leg, which is going to be my IK controller. So I'm just going to make sure it's not deformed, it's not connected to anything. And now I'm going to go and make the IK system. But because I didn't rename my IK bone or my other piston bones, I'm gonna have to go back and do that first. So here I can't see it because I haven't renamed it yet. And then yeah, again, just making sure that it always ends in 0.001. And then for the piston one, it's just whichever says 0.002 is the duplicate. So since the other one is lower top piston, this one will be the lower bottom piston, and then at 0.001. And this one, the same thing. It's the upper bottom piston, so I wrote BOT and then 1 there. Now that that's ready, we can go back and get the IKs working. Here I'm going to have it to the IK, and then I want the chain length to be 3, which is the lower leg, upper leg, and then the shaft. But first I need to parent my upper leg to the shaft so that the IK system can find it. And that should be good. As you can see, the line goes from the shaft to the bottom of the lower leg, so it looks like it's connected. And now the IK for each piston is just to have it point towards the opposite connector to where its pivot point is. So that one points to the third one, or the last one. This one pivots at the third, so it's going to point to the second one. This one up here pivots at the main, so it's going to point towards the first connector. As you can see here with the second one, doesn't work. There we go. And then since this one is connected to the connector 1, I want it to point towards the main connector. And again, making sure that all of their chain lengths are at 1. And now if we move around the IK, we'll see that it does control the entire system, which is nice, but there's a problem here. This doesn't look very mechanically sound, so we're gonna need to mess around with the way the IK works here. So in the bone tab, you have this inverse kinematics here, and if you use the limit, like the little limit button there, you can see which way it will rotate for that one. So since that one rotates the way we want to on Z, I close or lock X and Y, and then this one looks like it rotates on the X the way we want it to, so we lock Y and Z. And this one doesn't look good on X, doesn't look right on Z, so it must be Y. And there, as we can see, it looks like an actual mechanical arm would move, which is great. Now again, I'm just making sure that all of the bones that are deform, and all of the ones that I don't want to create vertex groups do not have them. And now I'm going to parent the mesh to the bones using with empty groups here, Control P with empty groups, and this will give us all of the vertex groups here, automatically create them. But we have to assign them now to geometry. So with shaft 0.001 selected, I'm going to select what I want to be in that vertex group and then assign with a weight of 1. And then I'm just going to do that for the rest of the mesh. And then when you're finished, you can just select every vertex group and then use the select button to see what part it corresponds to, and if you've selected the whole mesh, which we have, that's great. Now the next part is creating all of the legs, since there's supposed to be 6. Now with some basic math, I know that it's 0.3 in the Y direction, so I'm just going to duplicate it, then using G, Y, 0.3, I'll move it. Then I press the period to move my pivot point to the cursor, which is in the center. Then I duplicate the 3 legs and then scale them by -1 again. Now, because after you do this, you might have some IK problems. So after you scale by -1, Armature especially, you want to apply the rotation and scale immediately, and I'm just doing that for everything selectable right now. So here I'm just showing that, first I'm disconnecting all the armatures from their meshes. And then here, as you can see, this is 0.001, but this is also 0.001. So one cool thing is, if you select both of them and making sure that your original is selected last and then you join them, it'll automatically iterate up by 1. So here I'm just joining all of them together, making sure to select the original one, sort of, last, and then Control J joining the armatures together. This will iterate all of the bones so that they have different names and that all of their names are just, up by 0.001. Because of this, that means we have to go down the line for every single leg and change the vertex groups names to 0.00 whatever number the armature underneath it corresponds to. So here I'm just renaming them all. And then here's the last one. And that should be it. Now I'm going to select all of the legs, not the armatures, but like the geometry, and Control J, join it together. Now because we renamed all of the vertex groups, all of them should be present, nothing should be overwritten. And then shift selecting the armature, I'm going to parent it again, making sure to select the armature deform, not with anything, just the armature deform. And now in pose mode we can check if it works, if it looks good, and it looks like it does. The different bones correspond correctly to the different pieces, and it's all inside of a single armature, which is exactly what we wanted. Now I'm gonna bring the body back, and I'm gonna move this little connector piece or whatever it is to where I want it, and then just the same way I did it with the legs, I'm just going to duplicate all of them together and then join them with the body. And then I'm going to select everything when everything that the body is. In edit mode, create a vertex group called body and then assign everything into it. And then I'm going to parent the body to the legs, making sure that the legs are selected last. And then here what I should have done was move it before I joined them, but not a big deal. Here I'm just moving the body so that it fits correctly. But now we need to create a bone that corresponds to the geometry that the body is made up of. So I'm just creating a bone here, and I didn't notice, but I was actually renaming one of the IKs here, which caused me a little bit of a problem. But yeah, now I'm creating the root bone here, so that's pretty simple. Naming it root. That's it. And here's where I noticed that I had renamed my IK bone. So here I'm just setting the IK to 0.006 again, its correct name, and then making sure that my body is actually named just body, so that it corresponds with the vertex group, because the names have to be exactly the same between the bone and the vertex group. Now I'm just going to parent all the shafts, all the shaft pieces to the body, and then the body to the root bone. And then after that's done, everything looks correctly, plays correctly, and so it should work in Unreal Engine. Now before we can export it though, we have to do some housekeeping, which is I'm just going to move the mesh up so that the legs rest on the plane, so that when I import it into UE4 it won't be halfway into the floor. And then of course set the length to metric, the unit scale to 0.01 for the centimeter standard, and the clip end to 100 meters so it doesn't cut off the viewport. And then with the armature selected, I'm going to scale it by 100, which returns it to basically the same size as it was originally. And now I have to make sure to apply the transform on the armature, and then after that apply the transform on the mesh, and that should be it. This QBot should now be good to go inside of the Unreal Engine. I'm also going to rename it, the rig, just for consistency, to Armature. And now you can export as an FBX. So here, basically everything in the main is okay. Don't really need to worry about anything here. The geometries, make sure your smoothing is set to edge always, and then no leaf bones. And I am gonna select only deform bones. Animation's all good, but the only deform bones option, the only thing this is gonna do is get rid of the 6 IK bones. But I might as well, there's really no reason to keep them for Unreal. So here is the mesh in Unreal. And as you can see, the pistons are moving correctly, things look good. And yeah, that is the video. Now hopefully I will get into root motion and animations and even baking materials later on, hopefully coupled with this video soon after. And again, if you enjoyed the video, that makes me happy. Thank you very much.